Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Christine McKay. I'm the CEO of Venn Negotiation, and I've been an expert business negotiator for a really long time now. And the big news is that George Santos has been indicted. So I thought it would be really good to come on and talk about lying and negotiation, because I actually get that question quite a bit. So as a general rule for you, I recommend that you do not lie. And that includes exaggerating, padding your data, leading somebody on, white lies, big lies. There's this whole delineation and people have different views of it. The challenge with lying is that it's really tough to recover from when you get found out. And a really effective negotiator is going to find out that you are lying to them. So the thing is, though, that even though I'm saying to you, don't lie, the reality is that you should expect to be lied to. So what do you do about that? How do you know that you're being lied to? And what do you do when you find out or discover that you've been lied to? So listen to what your gut is telling you, because the reality is that when something is off, it's off. And our bodies actually tell us when something is off. So listen to what your body is telling you and go with that gut feeling. If you get something, if your spidey senses kind of get raised, then you want to start asking more specific questions. So ask lots of open-ended questions to get more details. And when somebody answers in a way that's really high level and really generic, start getting very specific with your questions so that you drive them to deeper levels of details. If somebody is a liar, like George Santos appears to be, then they like to talk in either really high generalities, or they get so specific that they start to trip themselves up on their details. So ask lots of open-ended questions and then make those questions drive to specific things that you're trying to test. Now, when you ask open-ended questions, you actually need to listen very intently to the response. And you're listening for inconsistencies. So, for example, I was doing a negotiation with a really large company. Actually, it was years ago. It was a few years ago, so I can actually talk about it. I was negotiating with SAP, which is a large enterprise resource planning software. And one of the things that the salesperson said to me was, we don't do A, B, and C because it's a revenue recognition issue for us. And so I kind of kept scratching my head about it, because the issue that we were specifically negotiating didn't make sense that it would be a revenue recognition issue. Well, as it happens, many companies put in their annual reports what their revenue recognition policies are. So I went to the annual report. I found more data, and I found out that he was not being truthful with me. And so at our next meeting, I handed him the annual report and said, this is what your company says is your revenue recognition policy. How is what we're asking for inconsistent with that policy? And so you have to be aware of the situation, but you have to listen for those inconsistencies. When does something that your counterpart is telling you, when does it not make sense? Just recently, I was negotiating a billboard deal for a client, and the salesperson from the billboard company said, we don't track data, we don't track eyeballs coming off of public transportation. And I was like, he's like, we only count eyeballs that are in cars, that are tracked by throwing a counter across the street. And so he's kind of, I thought that's an inconsistency. Is he lying to me about that? Because that doesn't make sense. That's not how his competition is doing it. They're tracking using cameras. They have cameras on billboards. They're doing all these other things. So I was able to kind of note that consistency, identify it, And I was able to ask for clarification, which is the next big thing that you need to do. So when somebody's lying to you, the last thing that they want to do is clarify that they're lying. They'll usually want to kind of skate over the lie. And so if you notice the lie, then that becomes a challenge for them. So, but I'll ask for clarification, and I'll often say, I'm really confused. Is it A or is it B? Help me understand. Now, I add the help me understand piece because that's less confrontational than saying, is it A or B? Right? Which I have seen people do, and it kind of puts them, because you're calling them out on their lie. You want to be careful how you do that. And so you need to read the room, read the person that you're talking to. But when we seek to understand versus trying to be understood, it puts a different frame on the conversation, and you're literally just inviting them for a conversation. Early in my career, I had somebody do this to me because I was talking about something, and I got myself tripped up because I thought I needed to say something, and I thought I needed to position it in a certain way in order for it to be accepted. And so I lied in a negotiation. And when somebody took this approach with me, it made me feel, okay, well, I can actually have an out, and I can back out of the lie that I've created. And so my recommendation to you not to lie comes from having attempted it in the past on my own many, many years ago, and realizing that it's just not worth the hassle that it creates. Now, one of my favorite TED Talks is by a woman named Pamela Myers, and she has a TED Talk on how to spot a liar. And she actually has a comment in there that I found really controversial. And when I talk to people about it, they find it pretty controversial. And I'm thinking about it with respect to George Santos and how many people he successfully lied to. And the thing is that Pamela's view is that we actually have to agree to be lied to. We actually have to go, oh, okay, well, we have to ignore all the external cues, or ignore, differences, the inconsistencies. We have to ignore a lot. And so this idea that we actually are agreeing to be lied to is an interesting concept. And so I'm really curious what your thoughts are, because people don't want to think that we've been agreed. It's easier for us to think we've been duped versus thinking that we are being lied to. And and there's we'll have a conversation at a different point on kind of body language. I'm not huge on the body language piece for a bunch of reasons, but facial expressions are a different thing. And Paul Ekman is the pioneer in studying facial expressions. And you can, just by involuntary movement of a person's face, there are certain things there's a certain way we contort our face that would indicate that we're lying. But I find that if I'm negotiating with somebody who's actually a really good liar, that it's more about listening for the inconsistencies and then asking those specific questions to get them to give me more details, and then highlighting when I'm being lied to, and having the courage to actually point that out. A lot of people are like, oh, well, I think that I'm being lied to, but I don't want to call them out on it. I think in a negotiation, if you don't have the courage to call them out on a lie, that you are creating the basis of a long-term relationship that's not going to be a healthy one. So have the courage to call them out on the lie. It's better to discover that up front and to give them an opportunity to address it and fix it than it is for you to let them lie, to kind of make sidebar conversations internally or in your own head about what that means. And instead, deal with it, address it, have the courage to do that, and move on. And so there are really a lot of things that you can do to discover whether you've been lied to, listening to your gut, making sure that you are asking a lot of open-ended questions. Get specific. Don't stay at a high level. Get specific. Listen for those inconsistencies and ask for clarification. And then when you discover you've been lied to, call them out, ask them if it was intentional. And then you get to have some additional information to make a decision on. I highly recommend you go check out Pamela Meyer's TED Talk on how to spot a liar. Really informative and really an interesting conversation. And also go check out Paul Ekman's work on micro expressions and how to read them and think about what that means in your negotiation. Really curious to hear your thoughts on lying. Don't be a George Santos. Don't go lie in your negotiations. Don't pad your data. Don't exaggerate the truth. But know that you will probably be lied to at some point in a negotiation. And now we've had this little conversation about what to do about it. Please like and follow Venn Negotiation for more negotiation tidbits. Tune in next time when we talk about more things related to negotiations. Thanks and have a great day.